At the front.
So originally how this all came about, Mr. Orloff came by our unit, had some questions about a new federal regulation that came out involving kill switch lanyards, when to wear them, use of them, everything like that. He wanted a little bit of clarification on it. We sat down and had a little conversation, and he invited us here, and we made it work. We got down here. We're actually on different schedules right now, so he's actually leaving work, skipping out, and and I came in on the weekend, and so that's kind of why we're here. I've been at Fairport on the Great Lakes for about 3.5 years, and he's been there about 3 years. So we've been there for a while, probably a little bit more of the senior crew at the unit at this time. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the new regulation that we had some questions about, and then what we'd really like to do is open it up for some questions. If anybody has any questions, it doesn't have to be about this. It can be about pretty much anything boat related. We'll talk about it. We'll be frank. If we don't know, we'll tell you, and we'll try to find an answer for you too. But
a little about myself. So before being here, I was down in Key West, Florida, where I did drug smuggling and migrant interdictions. I was a 50 cal gunner on forward, and then I came here to do search and rescue. Been doing that for 3 years, as he said. And it's a lot more fulfilling up here, getting to know the local communities, being able to save lives, and important things like this, enforcing federal policies, so everyone who's out on the water knows what's going on. So we're happy to be here. So we can go into this training.
Sure. So this pretty much has to do with the Frank Lobadio Coast Guard Authorization Act. Excuse my pronunciation. It pretty much talks about when boaters are required to wear kill switch lanyard for their engines on their boat. It's starting in fiscal year of 2021, which we're in right now. Required individuals operating recreational vessels less than 26 feet in length, capable of 115 pounds of static thrust. So that's what did they say, about roughly 3 to 5 horsepower of an engine. So not that much. Requires you to wear your kill switch lanyard when you're on plane or above the displacement speed, except when the main helm of your boat, main operating position of your boat, is within an enclosed cabin. Pretty much the Coast Guard stance on this too, just for some insider knowledge from this. The first year of this is not going to be actually enforcement practices. It's more going to be for data collection. So while we're out, and I don't know how many people in here have had interactions with the Coast Guard on the water. Anybody? One, couple. So when we're out, we're just doing
the dock too.
Yeah, especially the dock too.
So when we're out doing our recreational checks and everything, we come up alongside you and we stop you and we ask to see all your stuff. It's more going to be like survey questions or observations from us. Are these people wearing their lanyards the way they're required to on these boats? And then we're going to report that data up. We're not going to take down really names, enforcement practices or anything. It's more going to be kind of fact-finding. And then after the first year, we get more into the enforcement of it, of trying to see if you're not wearing your kill switch lanyard, then there may be some fines and some civil penalties involved. Yes, sir?
You have to have a kill switch on an antique boat now?
So that's what we're going to get into.
So
If the operator's overseas.
So what we read before was for something that was under 26 foot that has approximately 3 horsepower. So you're thinking of just a normal, small John boat with an outboard engine hanging on the back. Going on plane, you have that kill switch lanyard attached. Now when it comes to older boats, this is where the kill switch lanyard is changing for the future. So 2018 requires a manufacturer, distributor, or dealer that installs propulsion machinery and associated starting controls on a converted recreational vessel, so less than 26 feet, 115 pounds of static thrust, to be equipped with a standard 833. This applies to a recreational built after January 1st of 2020. So if your boat is older and you're in that criteria, you don't need to have the kill switch, but any boat from now on, from January 1st, 2020, and so on to the future, needs to have an installed kill switch lanyard attached.
Shouldn't it be related to the motor rather than the boat?
It should, which I understand, but what I think the main issue that we're having with, depending on the engine, they just want to have it so the kill switch lanyard isn't directly attached to the engine. It's just something to have it attached to your throttles, so in case of a situation, if you were to fall at the helm, because we have kill switch lanyards on our boats, we have the outboards in the back. If we fall at the helm, pulls the kill switch lanyard, kills the engine, so we don't have a possible mishap.
Yes, sir.
Any substitutes for that lanyard, like a dead man throttle?
So this, the regulation that we're reading right now doesn't specify that.
No, because
That
it's
may-
the same effect.
That may be something that they look into in the future. This is all fairly new,
Yeah.
so that may be something that comes about later. And it's kind of funny, we're here at the Antique Motor Association, given this conversation about kill switch lanyards. It probably doesn't apply to any of the motors or anything out
I
there.
have two boats that are 1945.
Oh,
I think
so-
I'm in the clear.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So kind of what the purpose of us, because it seems counterintuitive because we're talking about antique engines and stuff. If any of you are looking to purchase boats that are newer, you want something to kind of run around with and spend a little leisure time other than the boat you already own. Keep in mind that if it's built before, what did you say, 2021? 2020, if it's built after that, it's going to come with that installation already there for the kill switch lanyard, and then you're going to be required to use it. So this is a new thing. Obviously, the Coast Guard and the federal government in general can't backdate this and say, your boat and your engine was built in 1960. You have to now install this new piece of equipment. This is more for manufacturers. So if you're manufacturing a boat now, install this piece of equipment for motor safety. And then for us, when we're out there on the water, when we're looking through all your registration paperwork and everything, oh, your boat's new, if it's built in 2021, you have this kill switch lanyard installed. Now we can enforce that and say, hey, if you're going above your normal planing speed, if you're up on plane or if you're going above your displacement speed, you need to be wearing that at all times. Or for a safety thing than anything else.
What if you have a 2021 boat and a 1955 motor?
Interesting.
So yeah.
I think it still applies because it says specifically the boat, not the motor.
It's not the boat that you stop with the lanyard, it's the motor.
Exactly.
So it makes no sense. It's
So-
like, let's govern our government and do
I
it
would
again.
I would tell you, sir, that's probably going to be on a case-by-case basis, and probably one of somebody like us making that determination.
Seems like it should be based on the motor, not the boat.
It should.
It
Because
should.
the boat has nothing
So-
to do with the lanyard.
Smile and be courteous. Smile and be courteous.
So I would tell you that this doesn't reflect the views of the Coast Guard. But me personally, if I'm out there and I'm interacting with you and we're talking about your boat, we're checking the safety requirements. If your engine is that year and it doesn't have a kill switch installed on it, I'm probably not going to say anything or write anything because it wasn't manufactured with that kind of
Yeah.
technology and instrumentation on it. So how would you be expected to do that? Again, they'll probably come out with more guidelines for this since this is fairly new. And I'm sure with this data collection phase that we're going to go through, there's going to be a lot of problems with it and the enforcement procedures and policies passed up that they're going to say, okay, we have a problem in this specific scenario that maybe we need to take another look at.
Sounds like the person who wrote that is not a voter. That's what it sounds like.
Probably not.
The old bigwigs.
It's probably somebody a lot smarter than I am and gets paid a lot more than me to sits down and makes that determination and then sends it out.
The Coast Guard only recruits common sense people, okay? So it doesn't mean that they have anything to do with this.
So another thing with this, if you get a boat, a new boat, past January 1st, 2020, new boat, new motor, and you notice that when you buy this boat, it doesn't have a kill switch lanyard that is pre-installed into it, we need to know and get that. You need to call us what manufacturer that is not following those guidelines. Because all these manufacturers from now on should know this policy. If they're not enforcing it, they can be fined very heavily that they're selling boats that are not up to date with federal laws. So keep that in mind anytime you buy a boat. From now on.
That'll probably be the biggest enforcement procedure to come out of this. Not just necessarily the average boater, but more so the manufacturers making sure they're accountable for installing this equipment on their vessels that they're making and producing. So, yes, sir.
Does this apply just outboards or also inboards?
So this is gonna pretty much any engine or propulsion system capable of producing that specific amount of power, about 3 to 5 horsepower. Anything that will produce that or more, it's going to be required to have a kill switch lander installed. Yes, sir.
Even on old boats, though, it's not a bad idea to have a kill switch.
Sure.
I mean, there was like 2 summers ago, there was a guy out in the West Base and he was fishing by himself 10 miles offshore, trolling for walleye. And he was trying to net a fish by himself and he fell in. His boat was doing 3 miles an hour. I think he hit Canada and his body was finally deflated. And this happens every year almost.
Sure.
Yeah, like I said earlier, even we're wearing our kills. We're inside of a closed space, in our 29, which is our 29 foot. It's got 250s in the back. We're still wearing that kill switch lanyard, even if we're seated with the seatbelt on. We're still wearing it. The second we hit that wave, we fall off that seat. We want that engine to kill right away. We don't want to run into any of you guys. We don't want any types of mishaps. So,
John, has that ever happened?
if we fall out of seats, I fall out of seat before. Yeah, we've had that thing airborne, 7-footers, and they bottom off the seat, and next thing you know, it pulls.
You just see foot and bang?
We like to have a good time sometimes. We got to be there pretty fast, so when we catch planes sometimes, we get a little airborne, and for safety, it's good to have it there.
Do you actually have any cases of people flying out of the boat that they actually need a lanyard?
Yeah.
I've been boarding on lanyard.
He just spoke to it.
5 years.
I personally, in my time just in Fairport, I haven't seen it in 3 years, but I have heard stories of that happening fairly often. So it is a pretty common problem. I haven't seen it personally, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen.
We found like PIWs, and we don't know what happened. So you never know. That person might have been there because of their boat going away. Because we found people in no boat.
We've had a couple people literally fall out of boats in our check.
Yeah.
And in fact, we affectionately named one of the guys Flipper because he's had that happen a couple of times.
I named him Flipper. No, I named the guy Flipper.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen him here yet.
Yes, sir.
He's famous.
Clarification.
Yes, sir.
I do have a boat that does over 40 miles.
Okay.
I have a 20-minute run from my yacht club past you guys to the river.
Okay.
We're out the river in the no-wake zone. So basically, once I get out there, that's when I'm putting on.
Yeah, that's when you're going to be required to clip on. It's not a bad idea to wear it all the time, but yeah, as long as you're below your planing speed and you're not throwing any wake and it's below the hull displacement speed for the boat, you're not going to be required to wear that. So most of the time that's going to be when you're transiting the river through a no-wake zone. Maybe if you're trawling for fish, you're not going to be required to wear that. But as soon as you get above your planing speed or your displacement speed, we're going to require that to be worn.
So we're going to check to see if it's on board, and if we see when we come alongside that you were just at plane out there, we're going to check to see, was he wearing it when we came up on scene?
I understand.
You think the same inspections are gonna happen at the docks, the state docks, you think, to start with? And how do you think that'll go? Because that's the only time I've ever been stopped, is at the docks.
Honestly, I can't say. I think it'll have to be whenever we interact, we'll probably just be looking for it. Whether that's, we try to do, especially our unit, we try to do dockside stuff really heavily at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
So we're seeing people before they get out on the water, before there's any type of distress. We're making sure you have all your safety requirements, all your carriage requirements. So then once you put your boat in and you go out for the year, then you're all set to go. You have everything that you need or would need on board. And then as we get through the summer, into like the holiday weekends and stuff, more of our boarding interaction with the public is normally more underway type scenarios. So it could be both, could be either one.
Well, it's like hard, I mean, you could come up on somebody and they could, I mean, you didn't see him come out there, but I don't know. That's what I was trying to figure out, if we're gonna pull somebody over that's up on plane, or they're just saying, well, I just trolled out here the whole way, you know.
Honestly, the enforcement from this, from the ground level, is probably going to be a little bit challenging, especially when we start actually writing civil penalties and fines and everything for this, because it's going to be tough because, first of all, we have to see somebody above their displacement speed.
Okay.
Well, what does that mean for a particular boat? Normally you can tell, but what does that mean? So we have to see that. We have to see you physically not wearing your kill switch lanyard. Now, does that mean when we pull up alongside somebody, they say, well, I stopped and I took it off when you guys were coming up here?
That's what I'm saying, you're gonna get a lot of that.
So it's gonna be challenging, but the biggest takeaway from this is more for an educational purpose. I don't really expect me personally to really write a lot of violations for this, because there are going to be some of those scenarios, but it's more for the knowledge, for the safety side. We're trying to get the word out to the boating public. Hey, if you're on plane, you're going fast, you're not enclosed in a cabin, you should be wearing this, so we don't have those incidents if you fall overboard and your boat runs away, or, God forbid, you wind up in the prop of your engine. It's more for that aspect. Yes, sir.
Do you think the president, by executive order, is going to make all outboards electric?
That's probably a long ways away. Maybe like 200 years.
So I think we talked a little bit more about that. We'll probably stick around for a little bit after we're done talking. If you guys do have more specific questions about that type of regulation, feel free to ask. We'd like to open it up for general questions. Anybody have anything generally, concerns, comments you'd like us to speak on a little bit? Give me anything.
Any CARES department questions?
Does the sheriff's department ever get involved in this?
With
Was
this
that
specifically, or just the Coast Guard in general?
No, with
You're
the,
the only one's gonna be enforcing this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Only the Coast Guard for federal laws.
Unless the state of Ohio enacts legislation resembling this, then we'll be the, yeah, it could be. Now, so that wouldn't necessarily be enforced in inland lakes where we don't have a presence, and it's just the state that controls the policing
It's
of
just
that.
basically federal, like.
Yeah, federal waterways,
Yeah.
that'll be our enforcement posture. But we do work a lot with the sheriff's department and other Ohio departments here, just not going to be on this necessarily. Yes, sir.
Where would we go to get a safety inspection? Just recently completed process.
So, where are you out of, sir? What's Charlesville? Okay.
So it's interesting. So you can call ahead and call the Coast Guard and see if we can do it. So if you're in the local area of the Coast Guard, you can come by the station and we'll gladly come outside and do one real fast for you. We also have the Coast Guard Auxiliary, which is a volunteer service that also gladly do a recreational inspection. And they actually go more in detail than we do. Like those people will go head to toe in your entire boat. So you have those options of calling us, and then there's always the opportunity of if you just happen to be in the waterways and you see us, you can always flag us down. I don't know how many times I have people wave us over, like, hey, what's going on? And be like, hey, can I do it aboard? Yeah, sure, I'm not busy right now. Like, that's the best way. But yeah, I would say calling and trying to schedule ahead is the best way.
Division of Watercraft will also do it, and they're right downtown Cleveland.
They will for your state vessel. They will as well.
There's basically have boats that are under 14 feet. What is required to be on that boat to be safe?
I'll read it right out of the book for you, sir.
That's a good thing to know. I mean, sometimes you forget certain things, but
Sure.
So wreck boat under 16 foot. These have state numbering required for each vessel equipped with propulsion machinery.
So your registration and your paperwork and the number is on the side.
You need to have a
But
wear.
do you need, okay, some of us have historical boats.
Oh yeah, that's a different, that's a different block, you're right. So there's a wearable PFD, so any person on board, for the amount of people you have, needs to have a PFD that fits them. So if you have 2 people on board, you have 1 adult, 1 child, doesn't apply, you have 2 adult.
Do they have to be wearing?
They don't have to be wearing them, they just have to have them on board. Throwable PFD is not required for a vessel under 16 feet, so you don't need to have that. Sound signaling appliance, all vessels are required to have a sound signaling appliance. That includes installed horn. You can have just a signal whistle. Yeah, a whistle or an air horn, that works too. You need to have at least 1 fire extinguisher on board. So 1B1, which is one of those like smaller fire extinguishers, you need to have at least 1 of those on board.
There's no,
Small boat, yeah.
What's the length of the designation?
This is for all boat recreational boats under 16 feet.
Under 60.
Yep. So there's 1 small little fire
I
extinguisher.
don't think I've ever had one.
I am. That's good.
Write him a ticket.
Yeah, right.
He just admitted to it all along.
Are those just Ohio rules?
That's federal.
These are federal. These are federal that he's reading you right
Yeah.
now. The states can require you to carry more than what we require, but this is pretty much the bare minimum of what you need to have.
There's no limit on the park.
Yeah.
No matter what size boat, you still have to declare. I can't remember what that is.
So there's a couple caveats to the flare if you want.
Yeah, I'll get to the flares. Too. I'll keep working down the list, and then if you have any more questions, then I can go over it.
You're required to have
So-
visual distress signal on board.
You got the backfire flame control, so if you have an outboard engine, inboard engine, you have that backfire flame control, so if you have it with the back, most of you probably know what that is. You check to make sure that's like nice and seated properly. If you have an inboard, you need to make sure that you have ventilation,
Because
of
there's
course.
flares.
Lights and shapes, so the rules concerning lights shall be complied with from sunrise to
So
sunset.
if I come up alongside your boat
Visibility.
and I ask
Rules concerning shapes shall be completed within
I'll tell you.
the
Let me see
day.
your light
So,
charts and show me.
specifically
When I
for
look
lights
at
and
the flares,
shapes,
we look at the expiration date.
it says that you need to have lights on, but most of the time,
It
if it's
must be
under
within, if it
16 foot
expired,
vessel, all you need is a
say
single
January,
white light, like a little
It's
flash.
still acceptable to us
You don't need to
after
have
6
a
months.
flash.
So after 6 months of expiration,
I can read more into that if you want.
But until then, you'll
Uh,
go. Now, there's a couple different caveats. to
Yeah,
that.
that
If
doesn't
you're
apply.
operating
Most vessels under 16 foot don't have a
Coast
total
Harbor,
number, right?
you are
So
required
this
to
rule doesn't
have
apply for you guys.
that.
So visual distress signals is only required between sunrise and sunset.
And if
I'm
you're
sorry,
out at
sunset and sunrise.
if you're out
When the use of coastal waters or waters beyond the territorial seas. So with the Great Lakes,
So you
that
can have
applies
a flag,
for
but as soon
outside
as
the
it
break.
turns evening
Once you're outside that break wall, you have to have that
that's
visual
when we start
distress.
checking you have flares.
You said there's some sort of new light. you said?
Yes, it's a distress marker light.
That's
You
it.
can buy them, I believe I've seen them in Walmart. I think, and we're starting to accept how is it improve distress
That's a
signals.
great idea.
So the main thing I know that differs between an antique vessel is you don't have to have the identification on your boat. Because a lot of times they're like nice fashion, old
Yeah, you have
wood.
everything.
You don't want to have
Hand
that
them to me, I'm like,
lettering on the side.
these expired.
Now, I don't really know
They're like,
specifically
"Whoa,
what
you're
words
good."
it's how to become an antique vessel.
And I get this question a lot too. What do we do with expired
I
flags?
don't know. You-
Oh, they change numbers for Ohio.
Keep on board. They probably still work.
Yeah.
We just need to see some that are like antiques all around. If you have more than the required amount,
Okay.
still good, as long as one of them's, within
It's good to know.
I heard, I was told
Yes.
out in Canada a couple times,
Yeah,
I can't clear gun over there, you can get you for
Are you allowed to have
that.
people on there drinking?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So when it comes to consumption of alcohol on board, you're allowed to have everyone on board drinking, except for the person that's driving. That's fair. Now, if you're at anchor, everyone can drink. That's fair. If you're at anchor, we can't force any. You guys will be tanked. But at the end of the day, what you have to have someone sober enough to drive once you take that anchor, bro. So that's what we're checking for. So if we see you out there and you see you at anchor and everyone's having a good time, we might be sitting out, a little distance a little bit, waiting for that anchor to come.
Probably.
All right. Because I see that person driving. Come here for a second. So it's a judgment call. But at the end of the day, if you're moving, that person who's operating the boat cannot be consuming alcohol, and they have to be, under the .08.
Isn't the Great Lakes International?
What are you talking about?
Are the Great Lakes International?
Okay, so you want to go into the esoteric Virginia and all that stuff.
So, go ahead. And then,
Okay, so the Great Lakes fall under what is called Special Maritime Territorial Jurisdiction, SMTJ as we call it. So the way that it works is most places that constitute international waters, let's say off like Florida, I believe it's like 3 nautical miles offshore, it becomes international waters, no longer like inland waters. The Great Lakes are always falling inland. That's the way it works here. Because, I actually might want to talk more about it. I can find it.
also, yeah, and also with that too, it is all considered inland waters. And the Coast Guard still enforces all jurisdictional issues on the Great Lakes because we are on the border, on an international border. So all your inland requirements and everything like that apply, and we still will enforce all the carriage requirements and everything because it does end in that international border. It's kind of honestly, that what he was talking about, the special maritime jurisdictional zones, are a lot easier outside of the Great Lakes. A lot easier to understand. I can draw you a nice picture up here and show you the distances. Great Lakes are kind of their own entity. So we have different enforcement rules, different practices, procedures that we use here that probably aren't applicable everywhere else. So,
Hey, can you chase someone across this,
U.S. line?
absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
Yeah, so that's another thing.
You'll never catch us.
That gets into some international law requirements and stuff too. As long as we see a violation take place within the U.S. side of the border, and so you did something bad. I'm not saying you specifically, but somebody did something bad and we saw it. We saw somebody just shot their buddy and they took off. We saw it happen. We pursue them to enforce, federal laws for that crime. As long as we don't stop in the pursuit of that person, we can cross over the border. As long as we don't stop.
what if you just see someone going bad out of hell? You just can't chase them because whatever.
So you always have what we call like probable cause of reasonable suspicion. If someone's acting suspicious, for example, like they see us, then all of a sudden they turn around and they start taking off. I'm probably gonna see what's going on. So I'm gonna try to catch up and stop them. Just, and then start with the recreational public safety inspector.
If we wouldn't, they're already across the line when we see them and they just turn around and start taking back off towards Canada. That's a whole different scenario. It's probably talking between the State Department's, probably other assets on the Canadian side to kind of work together and see what's going on. But as far as, yes, sir.
Well, I'm on my fly bridge and I see these guys or the state. I try to just go the other way because I hate when they pull you over and look and bug you. So I know.
Sure.
So if I do that, you're going to chase me now?
No, we're not gonna chase it. We're saying
Unless you're doing some weird sketchy stuff.
yeah, it's sketchy. But the way we mainly do is do like what's called plain sight. So every day we kind of like set like a goal, like how many boardings we do. So at a different time, at a different stage of the day, we'll be out there. No one knows what time or when we'll be out there. And we're just like, all right, let's shoot for like 10 boardings today. So we're normally, first 10 boats we see, we're gonna board them. That's how it works. It's no, like, we're not targeting anyone. It's not like, oh, he's got a nice boat, let's go check on him. Like, it's just like, first one you see, let's go get him.
You gotta quote it before you
Unless there's specific hotel criteria and we're tasked to go specifically find, this numbered boat and we're going out to look for it. Other than that, it's just pretty much interaction with the community. We're just trying to make sure everybody's safe, have all the stuff they need. We're not really out there looking for bad guys and doing stuff. We're just out there to talk and make sure everybody has what they need.
Unless there's a really hot baby in a bikini, in which case you have to.
We won't talk about that.
Cross into Canada border. If your boat drifted into the Canada border while you're fishing.
Boat drifted into the Canadian border while he was fishing.
So what's the question? Who would I fall that under that?
So what would you do?
We do.
Oh, so we would call the Canadian Coast Guard, then we would just make a plan. So like, if you are a U.S. citizen that happened to drift into it, and I know your exact position, I'm just gonna call the Canadian Coast Guard and be like, hey, look, it followed over your jurisdictional lines. I'm gonna go there. If you wanna oversee it to make sure that I'm not doing anything sketchy, you can meet us out there. But most of the time, they're like, yeah, go get it. That's the way it works. Like I had a case right on the jurisdictional line. A guy broke down. He was on his way to Canada, and his buddy was already in Canada. And he's like, hey, can you tow me to Canada? Because I happen to be closer to Canada than I was back home. I was like, no, I can't. Like, it's not allowed. So I had to take him all the way back to fix his boat. And his buddy had no idea. They had no form of communication out there. So his buddy was hanging out in Canada just waiting for him at the pier.
You mentioned something in the requirements for safety requirements on 14-foot.
Yes, sir.
Was it something about a throat blanket or something next to you?
Oh, so I was talking about a throwable PFD. You don't need to have that. It doesn't apply to you. So that's what a throwable PFD is like. You normally see it looks like a square, like a little piece of life jacket, like a seat cushion that has like a strap attached to it. Or you can also see the classic life ring. Those are throwable PFDs. Those don't apply for you if you're 16 feet and under.
Yes, sir.
You just said his buddy was waiting for him in Canada.
Yeah, I had no idea. 'Cause we
He
didn't
was
know.
stuck. And neither one of these guys had VHF radios to talk to.
So at a certain distance offshore, I think around 10 to 12 miles offshore, I lose my VHF radio talking to the station. So it's not the best radio in the world, so I switched to UHF, which is a little bit better. But at the end of the day, like the common radio was like 26, I was 26 miles offshore.
Yeah.
It didn't reach land. So they lost all communications, no cell phone signal. So he was out there by himself. But thankfully on channel 16, you have that like urgent DSC. You click that, it can ping your location. So we got that and we were able to find it.
Any other questions, comments, concerns about anything? Yes, sir.
You mentioned about the Coast Guard Auxiliary. Now, I know Roger Kish just moved to Florida.
Yep.
Okay. Is Ron Baker still involved?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. See him all the time.
I moved all of Mr. Kish's furniture out of his house.
Oh, you're one of the guys? Yeah.
Ashton Kutcher, is he still serving?
Ashton Kutcher? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
I was over there just.
That was a good movie.
Okay. That was really nice guy.
Oh, yeah. Norm Darwin.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. John, appreciate your presentation, and if anybody has a question,
You guys are still. We'll just step in there for a little while.
Oh, that's
if anybody has any extra questions, feel free. We might stand by the donuts or something.
before everybody takes off, I got a little information on this, and maybe John and David will stick around for just a second.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I made this kill switch that you can put on just about any outboard motor. These parts are all available online through some of the electronic stores. If you want to contact me, I can give you the information on that. But it's pretty simple. Most of our old outboards that we're dealing with have a magneto like this. All you need to do is connect a wire from the set of one set of points to the other set of points and bring it out of the magneto. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a small terminal block in my engines, and I'll take and run those two wires to that terminal block. Then anytime I want to use the kill switch, I can take and connect this up to the terminal block and use the same kill switch on all of my engines. And this can be done on a single cylinder, same thing. You ground one side and you put a set of a wire from the points to the other side when you pull this switch. And all this is just a phono jack that has two contacts in it. When you pull the phono jack out of it, the contacts close and it kills the engine. You push that in, it opens it, and your engine runs. Attach that to yourself. And this can dangle pretty much, so if you fall out one way or the other, it'll pretty much go in the direction that you want to disconnect. So that's pretty much the whole situation. Obviously, there are kill switches that are available online. A lot of the ones that I looked up and saw bolt right to the engine, and they have a plastic clip that does basically the same thing. You pull it out, and it closes a set of contact points. They're available for somewhere around $15, $20. So that's about it.
Good solution.
Bill Mohad has a presentation on condensers, and he's going to give that now. If you guys want to talk to the gentleman from the Coast Guard, Nathan and John, they'll be available over there. So bring your questions to them. Otherwise, you may want to stay and listen to what Bill has to say. Thanks, guys.
Press the stop button for a second. Press the